Let yourself be swept away by the timeless pleasures of Celtic moods.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we choose one year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from the year to discuss. And today, we are doing our second St. Paddy's Day special. I was going to say second annual, but we didn't do one last year, right? Or the year before.
We have done one of these, right?
Yeah, we've only done the one, and we did it in 2020, I think. Yeah, that's right, because it became our most listened to episode over the pandemic because it was like the most recent episode we did when we took a break, which also apparently was when everyone was like, let's download podcasts, is the time we were like not putting out episodes at the beginning of the pandemic. So that was a weird timing. So yeah, our St. Patrick's Day episode is still in our like top 5, I think. It might still be like number 2 at this point. The TSOL has surpassed it again. It's just because it's the first one doesn't mean you have to listen to it first, guys.
Paywall?
We had to paywall a lot then if we were doing it based on quality of episode.
All of them go behind the paywall. Oh!
Our energy is just so low in those early episodes.
Which is shocking that we've really actually improved so much in the energy department. Like,
yeah.
I don't think of myself as a high energy person.
No, I think we just learned how to enunciate better and clearer and speak more with like purpose instead of just talking like this.
Yeah. Yeah, that helps.
And I think once we realize like, oh shit, people are actually listening to this, maybe we should talk a little clearer. You know, and I did also go to school for broadcasting, so
I didn't.
Yeah, but it's a rise. It's a what is it? All ships rise the tide, or whatever the fuck that phrase goes.
The rising tide that raises other ships.
Something. Whatever that means. Maybe yeah. You're bringing your level up based on my levels. Who knows? Yeah. So we are doing our St. Paddy's Day sequel, we'll call it that at this point. At most, it might be a quadrilogy. We don't know how many more of these we'll be able to do. We've done one already, and this is the second. And there's not many other big names.
Yeah, we've done one, and it took us a couple of years to do another one. So I think that says a lot of how we feel about Celtic punk as a genre. And there's very few big names. There's quite a few also rans.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I can really devote much energy to talking about the obscure Celtic punk bands.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Before that, if you head on over to patreon.com/punklautopod, you get access to all of our weekly bonus audio. And last week we did an I'm Listening where we talk about the albums we listened to over the previous month. So pretty fun conversation there. I found with those episodes, we're covering less albums per episode.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're just like, I guess we're just spinning off and talking about other things more on those.
I think it's fine. I don't think that we've whittled the show down from it being originally, let's do our entire Last FM 5x5s, which was a terrible idea to begin with.
Yeah.
To just being like, let's look at the last month and whatever you listen to that you feel like you can talk about it.
Yeah. I don't know. I have fun doing them. I think we've streamlined it and it's now more entertaining, I think. So,
yeah. Now we're also hitting like the end of the allotted time to record and just being like, oh, there's like 5 more records I could have talked about.
Yeah. Rapid fire.
Here we go.
Yeah, so all sorts of bonus audio over there. I also have recently posted the February record roundup. It's the new series replacing the new release update. Instead of being a weekly show, it is now a monthly show because, yeah, I think it's easier to manage. Doing a weekly show on top of a weekly bonus show on top of a weekly bonus show was proving to be difficult. So I was like, okay, let's narrow this down a little bit more and just talk about the month in general and not so much every single week. And if you want to devote an entire episode to an album of your choosing, join at the $10 tier. You do a one-time $10 donation, and then we'll talk about whatever you want, really. We have very few stipulations on what you're allowed to choose for us to talk about. If you think of it, we'll let you know if we'll talk about it. But
Yeah.
if you're going to go real left field and be like, what do you think about this? And maybe tell us in advance. But all right, so we are back to St. Paddy's Day, and we previously discussed the Dropkick Murphys. What was the name of that record? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember which one that was.
I could see the album in my head.
Was it an important one?
I don't think it was. I think we wound up choosing like a lesser record.
We picked like which record was it? Was it Sing Loud, Sing Proud?
It was Sing Loud, Sing Proud.
That's not an obscure one. That's a pretty significant record in their discography. It might not be one of the most important ones, but it's prior to the Warriors Code.
Yeah.
I think it's a solid entry point for a lot of people into the band.
Yeah, I just think if you're looking at the Dropkick Murphys discography, it's like not a top 5 record even. Like, I still think you would go with the first two, Do or Die, The Gang's All Here. You'd go with Blackout, Warriors Code, and Meanest of Times. I feel like you would go with all of those before you would wind up on Sing Loud, Sing Proud.
Are you saying we owe the Dropkick Murphys a redo in the future?
I could see them being one that we would do a redo perhaps with a guest. Maybe be like, hey, we're going to do a Dropkick Murphys record. Which one do you want to do?
Yeah.
I did do an episode of You Lost Me There with good friend Dave Brown, One Band, 5 Songs. And he did the Dropkick Murphys as the band. I can't remember which record it was that he chose as his dropping off point. It might have been The Meanest of Times. I'm not sure. But yeah. So there is some more Dropkick Murphys content in our Patreon feed. So if you head over there, you can get that too. Maybe I wonder if have I posted that publicly? I don't know. I had to go back and see if I posted that last year. But so yeah, Celtic punk. There's like 3 important ones, right? And
it's back to our shoegaze conversation. Is it a big 3 or is it a big 4?
Well, who would be 4? We know who 1, 2, and 3 are. Dropkick Murphys, Flogging Molly, the Pogues. I guess the Pogues should go first, since they're first anyway. And they're the most well-known band. Who's 4? Flatfoot 56?
The Tossers?
The Tossers? The Tossers can't be 4.
It's okay, fine. It's a big 3.
I think it is just a big 3.
Right. I mean,
the Real Mackenzies, I feel like, are even bigger than the Tossers, and they're like...
I mean, okay, if we count the Real Mackenzies, because Celtic punk can refer to Scottish and Irish.
It can, but I guess if we're going with a St. Paddy's Day thing, they should be Irish and not Canadian, doing Scottish Celtic punk.
Scotch Canadian, yeah, right.
So I don't know. We may eventually do them just out of a technicality, just being like, it's kind of there.
To the Scottish Protestants, not do the Saints mean nothing? I mean, St. Patrick is very specifically Irish, so
yeah, I think it's a very Irish thing. So I think it would be weird to do.
But Scotland hates England too.
Yeah,
so
but they're still
unified
part of England.
in that. I think that's just because they lost.
I mean,
they weren't an island.
Northern Ireland is still part of Ireland or of England too, right?
Right. Yeah. The reason that Ireland is separate is because it's an island.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who else you got? The Rumjacks? Like, is that a thing that people?
No.
What about the O'Reillys and the Paddy Hats? God, that feels like Irish face. Like, are they all actually Irish?
The Magora.
They're from Germany. That's not real. I mean, you could be you could be from any country and be Irish, but still, like, ugh, Mr. Irish bastard.
I mean, how do we feel? Okay, the Irish stuff. A lot of people like to claim they're Irish.
Yeah.
I feel like the last time we talked about this, there was definitely I felt like there was maybe a push and pull of how we felt about it.
What do we feel about what? Feeling about what?
About people. I mean, I guess about the ways that people claim Irishness.
It's a very Always Sunny way that people claim Irishness. And we actually know they're Irish. at least Rob McElhaney and Charlie Kelly.
I think there's the very northeastern U.S. like kind of, oh, I'm Irish, like, because they know their grandparents came, like there's it's a few generations that they've been. So there's definitely like a want to claim that identity, and I definitely understand and appreciate that. Like, yeah, like my very recent ancestors were hated by everyone for being immigrants. So like, it's just you also get into your like a lot of Boston Irish guys are like fucking shitheads.
Yeah, Boston's actually a very racist city too.
So it's like, you can't really do all of that like I'm Irish stuff and be racist.
Right, because the whole thing was, I think the Irish like identity came from the whole like, because when the Irish people started really immigrating in big numbers here in the States, it was like them and the Italians. Like, it was just a very much like a, you're not white, you're Irish, or you're not white, you're Italian. Like, it's a very, even though it's like genetically you're all white, so shut up. But yeah,
you can be exploited, and the Irish historically have always been. So,
yeah, everywhere they go. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's why it became such a like badge to be like, I'm Irish. And then also I think it gives people who don't have personalities like something to be like, this is my personality, is that I'm Irish. It's like, I mean, you don't have to be the only thing about you. As Anglos, we as the English descent that we are.
Yeah.
We may not be the most adequate to discuss this. We're Smiths on both sides of our family.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's Smiths, Styles, Hinsleys. It's like, it's all super British.
Yeah.
It's just like, shit.
I mean, I guess technically Hinsley could be Welsh, but
yeah,
they're like the other English, basically.
But we've all been very poor for a very long time. So.
Also, in the South, being Irish is not really like a thing, like in general.
No, it's not. There's a lot of Well,
is it because there's more Scottish here?
There is a significant amount of Scottish roots in immigration, and there's a big German, like,
a lot
of German settlers in North Carolina as well. So there's more German and Dutch and Scottish kind of like ancestry that people do claim to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you get into the Appalachian region, you have that whole Scotch-Irish influence on like culture and like and how it's such an isolated area for so long, and how they've retained a lot of that traditional Celtic influence in a lot of ways. But
yeah, like bluegrass is like almost a direct extension, like, evolution of traditional Irish music. So
yeah, which is interesting too. Like, it's how like there's bluegrass, but there's also just like you have a lot of Eastern U.S. country music draws from Irish, Scottish folk, English folk influenced stuff, and Western U.S. country music, you get a lot more of your German influence, a lot more of your polka influence, but
yeah,
and a lot more of your Spanish influence as well. But yeah, the Irish, I guess my question, or I think there was a time, the bigger point I wanted to come around to, I think there was a time where I was like, oh, like Irish, like that's silly, that's corny to try to be like you're American and you're like, oh, I'm super Irish, and it's like, now it's kind of like, I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that you have a lineage that you can attach yourself to, and especially one that's like, yeah, fuck England. Like, it's like, yeah, that's good. That's great. That's on the right side. You're just like, oh yeah, this horrible empire that has exploited people all over the world. Yeah, fuck them. That's a good identity to have.
Yeah, my wife actually does have some like Scottish heritage, and like her last name is very tied to, or her maiden name is very tied to Scottish heritage. So like she is like super into it. Like she's very much into her Scottish heritage. I mean, it goes back really far. She's not, nobody in her family is like a recent immigrant, or no one that in her family has the oldest family member she's met has not met someone from Scotland. It's just,
yeah.
She's figured it out through just research and like, yeah, figuring all that out. Because she's like Scottish on both sides, I consider, I think, of hers. So she's really into it. And I think anyone who like us, where it's just like, it's just English.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, who gives a shit? Like nobody cares.
It's not that interesting. It's like you go back and it's like, oh, they're English. Oh, yeah, they're even more. I'm remembering all of the other names like Smiths, Young.
Yeah.
Like my wife's family, there's a lot of British. Like her dad's side, they're definitely English primarily, but then on her mom's side, they have a little bit of Irish and a little bit of German.
Yeah. I mean, we probably have some like way back, but it's like probably like the ones who married into the family.
Yeah.
And we don't have those last names. Like, I don't know what my 3 generations back, maiden names of some family members were.
Yeah. I mean, like our grandfather's grandmother was Cherokee.
Yeah. Yeah. Because our grandfather is, I think he is like a level of Cherokee that he could get something from the Cherokee tree. Yeah. And also, and not in the I'm related to the Native Americans type thing that white people love to do. The myth of white people being related to Native. Like, I think it's pretty well known. Like it's a real, I guess I would never do a 23andMe because, privacy, but I would be curious to see if that is real or if that's just like also a family
myth.
Family myth. And
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either.
No.
Especially like looking at complexion.
Yeah. If you grew up in the South and like if you actually know anything about like indigenous culture in the Southeast, like the whole like, oh, my great grandmother was a Cherokee princess thing, like that's a very recent creation, I think, culturally.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't get anywhere by claiming having any native indigenous like connections or roots in North Carolina in the South in general. Like it.
Yeah. But I also think in the South, it's very possible you do. I think it's when you're like Elizabeth Warren. Where is she from originally? Is she from like the Northeast? Because she was the one that it was like the most famous that she was claiming to be Native, and then they did the test and she was not, which is also another problem, being like, what are we doing, like blood testing to figure out who's actually Native? That's fucked up.
Elizabeth Warren was born in Oklahoma.
Okay, so I mean, there's a chance, but she also wasn't, like, that was also the other thing they revealed. They're like, oh, she's also barely has an A or something like that. But
yeah,
I don't know. North Carolina has a pretty, Oklahoma does too. I don't know. Weird. We're not doing Indigenous Peoples Month though. We are doing Irish.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess I mentioned it in conjunction because there's a lot of connections between. I feel like there's a lot of connections between Celtic and Indigenous cultures, like in terms of like both historically very very marginalized, and in recent years people have tried to claim those identities that they don't really have a connection to or don't have like legitimately aren't actually Indigenous. Like Buffy St. Marie might not actually be Indigenous. Woof.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of cool to like have something though that you can be like, I don't know, it is neat to have like a little extra thing on top of just, I'm Southern. Ugh. There's things about Southern culture that I love, but there's a lot of bad shit about being Southern too. White Southerner? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's too much baggage to try to be like, I'm proud of my Southern heritage. It's like, am I? It's really big. It's a really big region. It covers a lot of different things, actually. So I don't really feel that much of a connection to it.
Yeah.
I just am it, and I don't pretend that I'm not.
Yeah. Did we go over like our feelings on Celtic punk in general when we did the Dropkick Murphys record? I mean, I guess if we did, who cares? That was like almost 4 years ago at this point. 3 years ago. Who cares if we did? No one remembers. We don't. What are your feelings on Celtic punk?
So I don't think that I like it as a subgenre. It's not something that I'm interested enough to do the deep cuts on. It's definitely something that I can appreciate certain qualities of the big names. But I think that as we'll get into when we talk about the record, the big names are the big names because of what is unique to them.
Yeah.
What like really makes them special are the things that I appreciate about them. So like Celtic punk as like, oh, I'm into Celtic punk. No, not really. Not in the way that I could say like, oh, I'm into ska.
Yeah, that's true. Because you can be like, I really like ska music. And that means it covers a pretty wide swath of bands and styles of ska too.
Yeah.
If you're like, I really am into Celtic punk, you're like, so you like what? 3 bands people have heard of and the other ones too that people don't know is a little weirder. Because even with like when we do Halloween Spectacular, like psychobilly, there's a lot of different psychobilly bands. There are a lot more well-known psychobilly bands than there are Celtic punk bands. If you think about that.
The thing and the connection that I guess I would make is the similarity between like psychobilly and Celtic punk is I would also say that I'm not into psychobilly, but there are definitely bands that are psychobilly that I like.
Yeah.
But I'm not into psychobilly in the sense that I want to go deep on that genre. I don't.
True. Also with I keep saying Irish punk. Irish punk is different. There are like Irish punk bands that have songs that feature Celtic instrumentation, traditional Irish instrumentation, but their overall sound is not Celtic punk. Like Stiff Little Fingers have songs that feature the tin whistle, but you would never call them a Celtic punk band.
Yeah, like Tin Lizzy have
right
traditional Celtic, songs that they've done or in things that are influenced by it at least, and you wouldn't call them a Celtic rock band.
No, you'd say an Irish rock band, but yeah. So just being Irish and sometimes using a fiddle doesn't necessarily make you like a Celtic punk band. So there's that element of it too. But Celtic punk to me is more like horror punk in the sense that there's like 3 bands that are like really known, and 2 of them have Danzig. I guess death rock. I guess whatever. I feel like death rock is deeper though than horror punk is, because it's like Misfits, Samhain, AFI, right? Not much more. There's stuff, but
horror punk is a lot more like Ramones core in that it's just trying to recreate the sound of one specific band.
yeah. So don't go deep with Irish or Celtic punk. God, I keep saying Irish punk. So yeah. Let's get into, let's do this. So the record we are talking about today came out in the year 2000. And when we do these, I like to look at what the same style of music is doing at the same time. We do this with the Shoegaze episode too. Just like you pick the same year and look and see what came out within that same field. So we went to rateyourmusic.com. We selected albums, EPs, and compilations. Did you select anything different?
No.
Okay. And we just put in Celtic punk, and then we put in Celtic rock, just in case, somebody who historically has been tied to Celtic punk, but didn't for whatever reason would show up. So our number one is our record today. So that's already telling you exactly what we're getting into here. But there is a Dropkick Murphys record that year. It is the singles collection, 96 to 97. So we have a compilation this year by the Dropkick Murphys, a lot of their earlier material. What LPs is this between though? So this is between, okay. Yeah. So we are between, why didn't this show up? There's a split. There's a Dropkick Murphys in the business split that came out in May of 2000, which for some reason, because the only genre tagged is Oi. That's why it didn't show up on the Celtic punk chart. That's probably more notable than a compilation.
Yeah. So
yeah, there's a Dropkick Murphys split in the year 2000 and a compilation. So we're between The Gang's All Here and Sing Loud, Sing Proud, which is actually the record we did when we talked about Dropkick Murphys. There is a Levelers record. I've never heard the Levelers before in my life, but when we were looking at just the Celtic punk charts overall, they were like the 5th band that showed up the most, I'd say. And they're from East Sussex. They're from Brighton in England. So I don't know. I really know nothing about the Levelers. They have 14 records though. So maybe we get to them one day, but they have a record called Hello Pig. The Tossers, The Long Dim Road. The Tossers are they're the Victory Records Celtic punk band. That's how I know who the Tossers are. I know they were on other labels, I think, but this is their second record. Not considered great. It's got a 3.05, so. But they're from like Chicago. There is a Young Dubliners record that year, Red. They are more important to Celtic rock, I think, in general than punk. I don't think they necessarily ever really touch on punk music. There is the Popes, which is not the Smoking Popes or the Pogues. It's another band from England. Like, I've heard of the Popes, but I've never heard any of their music. Fiddler's Green, they showed up sometimes. Black 47, I have actually heard of. They're a Celtic rock, Celtic punk band. I want to say they're Massachusetts, Boston. No, they're from New York. Interesting. Have heard of them. Oh, my favorite. Ballydows, out of the Fertile Crescent, the Christian Celtic punk band from Chicago.
Related artist Crash Dog?
Yes, I think it's like who from Crash Dog is in this band. Andrew Mendel, the guitarist for Crash Dog, is in Ballydows. And you know you're a deep Christian rock kid or Christian music kid when you know the names like Ballydows or Noggin Toboggan, like the bands who like never signed to Tooth and Nail because they weren't good enough.
Crash player was in Crash Dog too. Ballydows bass player.
Okay. Brian Grover.
Yeah.
So never listened to Ballydows. I saw their CDs in Christian bookstores, so that shows you they got that level of distribution. Crash Dog is definitely more important. They are considered like one of the earliest like Christian punk bands that like actually sound like they were making punk music, because there are a lot of like bands who just sound like U2 and they're like, we're punk bands. It's like, okay, maybe.
Yeah. Crash Dog also kind of lefty.
Yeah, I think there's like an anarcho element to them too.
I mean, they have an album called Cassius Fascists and Other Fungus.
Yeah, they're definitely
very like socialist looking artwork.
Yeah, they're an interesting band. They're an important band for Christian punk, but like they're not super well known either. It's a weird like thing. And yeah, that's kind of it, right? Like anybody else? I don't think I've heard of anyone else on this list. The Shanes have an album called The Haunted House of Polka. It's a German Celtic punk band.
Yeah, I don't know the history of Celtic music. I know there's kind of a big Celtic revival in like the 50s and 60s around all over Europe. But
I guess just for my own curiosity, just to see what other Irish artists were putting out music that year. U2 released All That You Can't Leave Behind. Enya released A Day Without Rain. Sinead O'Connor released Faith and Courage. The Coors released In Blue. The Waterboys are listed on here. Waterboys? Oh, they might. Yeah, I think they might not be. They started in England, but they were Irish people. The Chieftains. Yeah. So that kind of gives you where where Celtic punk is and Celtic rock is in 2000. I don't think we're at cash cow era Celtic punk yet.
No.
And what I mean by cash cow, meaning you could just be like, I'm a Celtic punk band. And then you just make money doing that. Being a Celtic punk band, playing, it's our busy time of year. You know, we're playing lots of St. Paddy's shows and bar shows and March. And
yeah, I am booked for the month of March. Yeah.
Or you could just do the Irish pub circuit and just be one of those bands who only tours the country and only plays Irish pubs. Like, that's a thing. You can do that. You can make a whole career out of just being an Irish Celtic punk band. Funny, you can do all the Highland festivals you want and all the maybe not Renaissance fairs, but
yeah. So that's kind of where I have the issue with Celtic punk as a genre. I think that is ultimately where I have the issue with Celtic punk as a genre. There's a lot of bands. There's too much music in Celtic punk. I'm not gonna throw all of Celtic music under the bus or anything like that. There's so much valid. It's not for me, but like that's a world where people are discerning. Celtic punk, there's no discernment. It's like, oh, you got a tin whistle, get up there.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the quality control is not there with Celtic punk, because the idea is it's the very cartoony, image of punk as being, anybody can do it. We're sloppy and crude. And when you combine that with Celtic music,
oh yeah, like
unless you're the Pogues, which is a whole level of like artistry.
Yeah.
It's a very like deliberate like abrasiveness
Mm-hmm.
that like is suited to the lyrics, to the whole, like, it's a whole package.
Yeah. And you're right. I think there is a reason why there are only like a handful of bands that anybody really cares about in the style, because those are the ones who are the best musicians or the best songwriters in the scene. So I don't think it's a matter of, I just think there's the depth of talent isn't as strong in Celtic punk. Maybe that's because like the people who are like super talented at those particular types of instruments tend to play just more traditional Celtic music, because it's a very precise, like, you got to be good to play Celtic music. And so if you're like really good at playing that kind of stuff, is Celtic punk the avenue you're going to go to? It may be more lucrative just to be just a straight up traditional Celtic group, you know?
Well, and you can do it year long.
Yeah, you can. And it's funny because Celtic punk, I don't feel like, I mean, you can do it year long if you're like one of the 5 bands making money doing it, but you're right. It feels more like limited to a specific time of year that most of the also rans just like, I guess, we'll get a Celtic punk band in here to play. Like, that's kind of how it.
Flogging Molly could do it year long, but they also made a point of having St. Patrick's Day tours.
Yeah.
Like,
and like Dropkick Murphys were smart enough to not just be like one influence in their sound too. Like they are as much part of like street punk and oi music too. Like those are very big parts of the Dropkick Murphys sound. So they feel year round too. Like they feel like, oh yeah, we can listen to Dropkick Murphys in November and nobody's going to get really mad at you, you know? Like,
yeah, that's definitely a band that is as much an oi band as they are a Celtic punk band.
And then the Pogues too. It's just like, well, they're Irish. Is the whole band from Ireland? I assume most of them are, if not all of them. But it was just like they came about in a time period where like nobody was really doing that.
Yeah,
they started early enough. They're even to the point where to me, calling the Pogues like a Celtic punk band feels very reductive. Like they feel a little more than just a Celtic punk band, you know?
It feels the same as calling the Cramps psychobilly.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
Yes, but also they really did it so differently.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. It does feel a little more costumey, a little more just like gimmicky. And I do think this record and this band might be responsible for the wave of gimmicky that came after this, but we'll get into it. So
Did you even intro the record?
No, we haven't even introed it. Like, so. So for this week's episode, I said, Dylan, you got to pick a Celtic punk record for us to do, because I think we may have chose the Dropkick Murphys together, and you selected Swagger by Flogging Molly.
To light and blue, there's nothing more a man could do. Don't get your bollocks in a twist. Settle down, don't take a fit. You drank a demon straight from hell. You almost nearly won as well. You wiped the floor with victory, then puked until you fell asleep. Like it was the Banshees, well, these boots will never feel like jail. You crawl into an empty boat. For the Gulf of Mexico, but Curtis came and so did you. From the ashes, Jordan blue, smelling like a salty dog. Back from hell where you belong.
I got assigned it because you picked the Bloody Valentine's Day.
That's how we
record.
Determined who chose.
So it was like, okay,
right.
I got to do the gimmick episode pick this time.
Because I think last time we committee selected, or maybe just randomly selected, to get that Dropkick Murphys record. But yeah. So stats on the band. Flogging Molly is from Los Angeles, California. Red flag right away. We'll get into it. Formed in 1994, this album was released March 7th, 2000 on Side 1 Dummy. This is the band's first full-length studio album, and the person on this record is Dave King on guitar and vocals, Matt Hensley on accordion, Nathan Maxwell on bass, George Schwint on drums, Bridget Regan on fiddle and tin whistle, Dennis Casey on guitar, John Donovan on guitar, Robert Schmidt on mandolin and banjo, and Gary Schwint on trumpet. We have a Schmidt and two Schwints in this band.
Are they siblings?
I would assume the Schwints are siblings. I didn't look too deeply into them, but George and Gary, that feels like brother names.
Yeah.
And this album was recorded at Electrical Audio by Steve Albini.
No fucking way. All right, not everything has the Albini sound.
You can really feel the room on this record.
I said that, and I'll take that back to say the electric guitars have a pretty Albini feel. Yeah, they do. Everything else, though, good one, Steve.
Yeah,
snuck one by.
You want to know what Steve was doing in the year 2000 as well?
Sure. Steve
Albini also worked on American Dawn by Don Caballero, Sovereign by Neurosis, Goat Snake and Burning Witch's split album, The Bombs Torch Songs. He also worked on a Silkworm record, which I didn't know you were going to be talking about Silkworm on the I'm Listening, or else I would have wrote down which record it was. He did a Man or Astro Man record, and he did an XBXRX record. So,
yeah, I guess this is before Steve iPads weren't out yet, so
yeah,
he had to pay attention to what he was doing.
And then Side 1 Dummy at this point had really not done a lot. They're still fairly new at this point. I think they started in like 96. And they had only done albums by Swingin' Utters, 22 Jacks, Royal Crown Review, 7 Seconds, and a shitload of compilations.
Yeah.
I will say, I thought 22 Jacks was a gimmick band. I don't think they actually were. I just think they had like a visual image of like martini glasses and pool tables was like their visual image. But I think they're just a punk band. Like, I don't think they're anything sonically weird.
I think that's just Side 1 Dummy's image.
Yeah. And then Royal Crown Review, that's probably our ground zero for gimmick bands on Side 1 Dummy. They're the swing revival band.
Yeah.
And I guess it depends on if you consider like early Swingin' Utters like kind of a gimmicky band.
Cowpunk.
Yeah, they were more like doing the Clash thing real early too.
Yeah.
Not as like defined of a gimmick with that band.
No.
And then I guess 7 Seconds gimmick is we're straight edge. We're a classic hardcore band that actually stayed together. But yeah, so that's what Side 1 Dummy and Steve Albini were doing.
Which 7 Seconds record?
It is the one with the kid on the cover. Good to Go.
Okay. Is that second to last?
I guess, right? Because this is Take It Back, like their last record.
Take It On, Take It Over is the next one.
No, they have Leave a Light On in 2014. That I think is the last one.
Well, Take It Back, Take It On was the last one when it came out. True. They called it the last record. I'm pretty sure they even like talk about it as if it's the last record in the liner notes.
Yeah, that one was on Side 1 Dummy as well.
Yeah,
Take It Back. Yeah, so that's what's going on with them at this point. So
yeah, okay, Good to Go was in '99. There's an old car on it. Side 1 Dummy, Greaser Punk label. What do the guys from Side 1 Dummy look like?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever looked at him.
Who was it? It was
Joe Sib, right?
He's a greaser.
Is he?
Does he do comedy now? Yeah, Joe Sib from 22 Jacks.
Yeah. Bill Armstrong and Joe Sib were the founders.
Yeah.
Is he a comedian? That's funny.
He's got slick back hair. Yeah, he does comedy.
Who's Bill Armstrong?
Slick back.
Bill Armstrong's name is too generic to look up.
He's just a bald white guy. So, all right. We're burning daylight hours here looking up what the guys from Side 1 Dummy look like.
Yeah. So, Swagger by Flogging Molly. What made you choose this album for us to talk about?
So I looked at the charts and I'm like, Pogues, Flogging Molly, Dropkick Murphys. Pogues, Flogging Molly, Dropkick Murphys. I was just like, all right, it's the three over and over again. The Tossers? No. So I was leaning Pogues initially. Ultimately, it was two choices for me. It was Flogging Molly or it was the Pogues. And I was leaning Pogues at first, and I'm like, okay, what are the important Pogues records? So I kind of sampled some of them, and I put them on, and it was just kind of like a not the right time and place. I was like, I don't know that I want to listen to this right now. And I think ultimately it came down to, I felt like with the Pogues, it was going to be work to listen to a Pogues record that would be worth putting in, but I would like to maybe listen to a Pogues record without it being a gimmick. I didn't want to put homework on homework to listen to a Pogues record. Like I wanted to let myself be in the right mindset to listen to like one of the classic important Pogues records, because I think those are records that are probably worth me putting in the effort to get something out of. And I didn't feel like I had really the right frame of mind or the right time limit to do that. And I figured with Flogging Molly, there is a history, and I thought the potential for a sentimental boost, a nostalgia kick, it's kind of the bonus multiplier. Should be like, all right, I could cash out big on this one. There's a possibility. It could suck. It could be fucking awful, but it might be enough of a, hey, I know every single song on this record, and it was a lot of fun to revisit it. So that's why I went with Flogging Molly, and I figured if we're going to do Flogging Molly, let's just do the first one. Let's just do the first album. It's the beginning of the band. It's the beginning of that era. Sidewood Nummy. It's the beginning of their whole gimmick phase.
Yeah. Woof. Well, let me do the history then, our connection with Flogging Molly to begin with. So my first introduction to the band would have been Warped Tour 2003 compilation. I want to say that's the first one that I heard them on. Let me double check that. If it wasn't that one, it was like the 2002 compilation. Either way, there were two Warped Tour compilations that I owned, and I was like, I kept coming back to them because they were like fun and different. Like I'd never heard this kind of music before, like taking such obviously traditional Irish elements and Celtic music elements and combining it with punk music. Because I don't think I knew the Pogues at that age. I was still in high school age. Yes, I know exactly what year I got into them, really, because 2003 would have been the year that I got that compilation. And so then I had them, maybe like two songs of theirs from these compilations. I really enjoyed them. I was like, these are fun songs. Hey, they have their albums at Media Play. God, I miss Media Play. My favorite big box store to buy music from, because he also had everything else: movies, DVDs, books. You bought your first guitar from a Media Play. I love a Media Play.
Well, first electric guitar. Our first guitars, our acoustics, were from Mars Music.
Yeah, which is now just Guitar Center. I think they merged.
I thought Mars got bought out by Sam Ash.
I don't know. I think it's a Guitar Center now, but if it's even that now, I don't even know. Yeah, so I like the songs on the Warped Tour comps. I went to Media Play. This is when I was working at the car wash, and I just was tipped cash every single day. And so that became my habit of just buying a CD or two or three every single week. I was like, I got cash, and my only bill is car insurance, which is less than $100 a month. So, and gas money. That's all I had to pay for at that age. So I was like, all right, I'm buying shitloads of CDs. So I went into Media Play. I saw they had Swagger and Drunken Lullabies, and I bought both of them. Instead of me being like, well, let me just buy one to see if I like it, I just bought both at one time.
You bought two Flogging Molly records off the strength of one song on a compilation?
Maybe two. I think there were two.
Were there two?
Because I think there was one. I heard two songs and I go, I like this.
I'm all in on this.
Look, I had cash and it was burning a hole in my pocket. That would be a common problem in my teenage years of buying CDs.
I never had cash the way you did, but I never bought CDs the way you did. I was like, is this the one? Should I spend my Bernie? I only have $20 for the next 6 months. And I didn't get to have a job.
Yeah, that's true. You weren't allowed to have a
school.
job for some reason.
I wonder if our parents were like, that kid can't handle money.
You would have saved your money. I'm the one who can't handle money. I can now. I don't have any money to handle now.
They didn't want me to get a job.
You know what? I'm looking now. It may have only been one Flogging Molly song because it's on the 2002 compilation, What's Left of the Flag, which is on this record. Unless just like this 2003 Warped Tour comp playlist on Spotify doesn't have the Flogging Molly song for whatever reason. But yeah, maybe it was off of one song. Jesus. So I bought those 2 CDs, listened to them like kind of back to back in my car all week long, driving back and forth from work. I finished Swagger, I'd put on Drunken Lullabies. I finished Drunken Lullabies, I put Swagger back on. So like I was like, I'm listening to them pummeling myself with Flogging Molly music for like a week. And then I go into Media Play again that week, maybe like a Thursday or a Friday. I go in there and I see, well, shit, there's a third Flogging Molly album. It was released September 14th, 2004.
So the week of September 14th, 2004,
I bought the first 3 Flogging Molly records in 2 separate transactions because I don't think they had the new one yet. Like, I think I bought the 2 on Monday and then Tuesday was New Music Day. And I came in on like Thursday or Friday and I saw another one and I was like, might as well. I bought the third one that week. So I bought the first 3 Flogging Molly albums the same week and then just cycled through them over and over and over again.
We listened to those albums so fucking much.
I loved them. I thought they were great. I also was very susceptible to Side One Dummy gimmick bands.
Yeah.
Because Gogol Bordello would trick me a couple years later. At least with them, I downloaded most of that. Didn't spend that much money on them.
Yeah.
And who were the other? Well, while we're here, who were the other gimmick bands on Side One Dummy? Because it went from that. There was the Dan Band, which was like, what was their whole gimmick? Were they kind of doing like lounge? Was it kind of like what was their deal? The Dan Band. It's a cover band that like they did covers of originally female performed pop songs with added obscenities and swearing.
Oh, that sounds so bad.
They were a cover band. They're in like the movie Old School. Oh, we had Bedouin Sound Clash, which was the Canadian reggae ska band. We also had
some ska, some Big D. We had some Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
Right. We had the Casualties, which was costume punk.
Costume punk, yeah. We had the Suicide Machines, so more ska punk.
Yeah. You could say that when Gaslight Anthem joined, they were also a gimmick band with a 59 sound.
The Fake Problems, also a gimmick band, as their gimmick was that they're not as good as
the Gaslight Anthem.
The Gaslight Anthem.
Oh, we had Reverend Peyton's Big Damn Band. That was another one. They were like the country blues band.
Some piano-y piebald stuff.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, at that time, piebald would have been the piano punk band. VCR was like the synth pop band.
Mm-hmm.
Zox, were they a fiddle band? They were a violin.
Like the electric violin.
They were like not Yellow Card.
They did a lot of ska stuff too.
Yeah,
and stuff.
And even later, they got like AJJ. That was their folk punk band. They had Astronautilus. That was their rapper.
Oh shit! They had Chuck Reagan doing acoustic records.
Yep.
That was a gimmick.
It was.
That was. That was the appeal to Side One Dummy. Chuck Reagan's solo material, valid. It's good music, and it could have existed outside of Side One Dummy. The reason it was on Side One Dummy, they're like, oh, we got Hot Water Music Guy doing acoustic records. Always had to be something different. Slick Shoes was the Christian one.
Yeah. It kind of was what their deal was. They're the Christian one.
What's the one exception? The one true punk band on Side One Dummy was Avoid One Thing.
Yeah, just like a straight up regular punk band that wasn't doing anything weird. I mean, they had Anti-Flag, which is another political costume punk band.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of gimmicks on Sidewind Dummy.
It's just like you have a meeting with Sidewind Dummy and they're like, so what's your angle?
Everybody had an angle. It wasn't until you get to like the post AJJ era that's when it felt like, okay, we just have bands like Timeshares and like Pup and, you know, less on the nose gimmicks.
Yeah.
Roswell Kid, you know, Violet Soho, Warriors were on there at one point. So yeah, they dropped the gimmick after a while. I think because everybody was like, this is a gimmick label? Is that what this is? I think it became too apparent, too obvious what was happening.
Yeah.
I don't need a just devour everyone in every hour. All is me is all I need, and that's all that I care. Propelled through all this madness, for your beauty and my sadness. I'll never change or rearrange, like finish what I started. And life leads me here. It showed me I have never really loved no one but me. Like the time you slipped through my hand, and I'll never understand why I'm such a selfish man.
So yeah, all in on Flogging Molly in 1 week. And then I never bought or listened to another Flogging Molly album ever again.
Nope. Did we listen? Okay, you might have a better memory of this than I do. So I remember you getting like all of those records, like very close to each other. I don't think I realized that you bought them all in the same week.
Yeah.
At the time, I remember listening to them all the time with you. I remember listening to them in your room. I remember listening to them in your car. I remember borrowing the CDs from you and listening to them myself. I especially remember listening to them in the car, though. We listened to them in the car so much.
Yeah.
Like, and I distinctly remember going to football practice, which this is where have we ever talked about playing football on the show?
I mean, if we did, it was very in passing.
It was in passing, probably.
Yeah, we played football. You played for 6 years. I played for 4.
Yeah. Now, don't get any crazy ideas. If you've listened to the show for a while, you know we were homeschooled. This is like a rec league type thing.
Yeah.
It was 8-man football. But I got flattened by a guy who walked on to a college football team.
Yeah, you did.
So,
and then later became
like a strongest man in the world.
A power lifter.
Yeah,
a power lifter competitor. So, hey, I was always paired up with him too because I was the second biggest guy on the team, and like there's a big valley between us, like as far as like his size and mine. Like he was huge. He was like a refrigerator. Like
he was tall.
He was wide.
A lot of weight, and also like did some weightlifting then.
Yeah, a lot of muscle.
And you were just like,
I'm just taller.
Average height. Yeah,
I'm just 6 foot. Not even. I mean, at that age, I probably wasn't even 6 foot yet. You know.
And you were probably mid-low 200s. If I had to guess your weight.
Yeah, mid-low. Yeah, probably 220s or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I wish.
I'm trying to think of what my peak weight was in college. It was like 230 after college. But I distinctly remember there was one time we were listening to a Flogging Molly record. It was probably Drunken Lullabies, but I could be wrong. We're listening to it in your car. We maybe like had just pulled up to football practice and like blasting it with like your doors open outside of football practice, and like our friends were like, "What are you listening to?"
That was a regular conversation.
It was like it's Flogging Molly. They rule. It's Celtic punk. You just don't understand. It's just like I think of that occasion probably more often than you would think. Because after that point, I have no more distinct memories of listening to Flogging Molly. It was a turning point of someone going, "That's embarrassing."
How embarrassing.
And it's not that we we didn't take it personally. We didn't stop listening to them. I know we didn't stop listening to them because of that. But it was like the Grim Reaper's shadow on listening to Flogging Molly. It's just like, it's not soon for this world, or not much longer for this world. Like, it's like, we're gonna, did we listen to Flogging Molly intensely for a year straight and then just completely drop them?
I think that must be the case. Like, which could really be more burnout than anything if you're doing that. But also, I guess there is still an element of like now where I'm like, ugh, how embarrassing. So like, there must be some shame tied to it in some way. I mean, I guess we would have been getting more into like metal and hardcore by that point too.
Yeah. It felt like just a natural progression of tastes.
Yeah.
But it was, now it's not, Flogging Molly is not alone in terms of being dropped unceremoniously for other music to listen to. I definitely feel like there's definitely a lot of the stuff that I liked as like a kid that going into being a teenager, I just kind of was like, I'm not listening to that anymore. And like I would have been into Relient K around this time.
Yeah.
And they would have also dropped off of my radar. But I also distinctly remember not liking their fourth record as much when I got it. So it was more of a you lost me there situation. There was no you lost me there with Flogging Molly. It was just like a completely fell off.
Well, I think part of the problem why they fell off for us, our personal listening ship, is that they then like didn't do anything for a while.
Yeah.
Like they were just a touring band. And like the next thing they put out is like Whiskey on a Sunday, which is like a live record in 2006. And then they don't follow it up with an LP again until Float in 2008. So like they did one every 2 years, 2000, 2002, and 2004, and then waited 4 years for another studio album. And I think we were going to drop off no matter what after that third one, but maybe because they didn't follow it up very quickly with something else. I remember even looking them up on their website at some point after the third record, and I was like, when are they going to do something else? Never mind the fact that I had just like bum rushed their entire catalog in like a week.
You just like slammed a case of beers. Oh, there's no more beer in the house.
Yeah. So, I mean, they took a long time. And then like, yeah, we were just over it too by that point. And the only other like Flogging Molly I ever listened to, like the only time I would ever listen to Flogging Molly, it'd be with my wife. And she like has like a couple songs she puts on some playlists sometimes. And it's still from one of these 3 albums. So like it's nothing past the third album has ever really entered my listening habits. Though I did listen to the one. What's the one that I listened to? Is it the very last record? Yes, Anthem. I listened to that one in 2022 because that was the one that they were like working with Steve Albini. And I was like, what's a Steve Albini Flogging Molly record sound like? Not realizing that I had already heard that record once before. Totally did not realize that he had done that record.
Did he do all of their records and we just don't know it?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
I actually looked that up. I was like, he didn't do all of them, did he? And he didn't. He did the first one and the newest one. He didn't do any of the others. So I was just very like, what the? And then, yeah, that's when it hit me. I was like, holy shit, he's done 2. He did the first one, the best one.
I don't know. Probably.
I like it.
I didn't listen to the other 2 this week.
No, so. I didn't test them. My memory was I always liked Swagger better out of the 3.
Yeah.
Because the third one is like, that's the one with like a shitload of slow songs on it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I looked at like the history of this band. Well, more the history of Dave King. Yeah. And there's a lot there that I did not know. So Dave King is the only actual Irish musician in Flogging Molly. He got his start in a UK metal band called Fastway, which featured Fast Eddie Clark from Motorhead and Pete Way from the band UFO, as well as the drummer of Humble Pie. In 1983, he was a nobody. He just like I guess he auditioned and then got the job in 83. I was like, what? And the band's called Fastway because of Fast Eddie and Pete Way.
Yeah, I got that immediately when you listed. Actually, before you said the second person, I was like, oh, the other one's is Away.
And he did like 4 albums with them, all in the 80s. So Fastway breaks up, and he starts a new band called Kathmandu with a member of Crocus.
What the fuck?
That band did like 1 record. So Dave maintains those bands were on Epic Records, and he just maintains a contract with Epic Records, and he was just gonna record a solo record as Dave King, I guess. I don't know what the hook was gonna be, and it was gonna be Irish instruments. He was gonna get into his Irish heritage and stuff, and Epic was like, "What? Nobody wants that," and said, "No, you can't do that." So he manages to talk his way out of his label deal. He's like, "All right." He's like, "They're not going to do what I want to do, and I don't really want to be on this label." He talked about how, like, when he was in those other bands, he would be listening to stuff like The Cure and The Smiths, and like the guys in the bands would be like, "What the fuck are you listening to?" Like, just like
heavy metal all the time.
Supposed to be metal all the time, man. You're the singer of a metal band. I didn't listen to Fastway. I bet it sucks, but I would like to hear his voice. I should have listened to it. And I guess he was just like, he said he felt fake. Like he was like a poser almost. Like he just like, I wasn't a metal guy. Like I just happened to sing in a metal band and didn't care what he was singing about. He said like, I just wrote lyrics. I made them rhyme. That was all I cared about with that band. And so he gets out of his Epic Records deal, and then he has moved to Los Angeles at this point, and he meets some people. They start playing traditional Irish music. They start playing gigs around LA. And then a couple of people I forgot to mention this part. Apparently Epic wanted him to be the singer for Jeff Beck as well. Very weird. He declined. He's like, I don't want to do that. So
I thought Jeff Beck sang.
That's what the article, the Wikipedia said. A singer for Jeff Beck.
Wait, was Jeff Beck not singing on those classic Jeff Beck records?
I don't know. And he was a guitar guy.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's famous for being a guitarist. I assumed he sang on most of those records.
Maybe they wanted him to like sing with him. I don't know. I don't know how that worked. So then he starts his Irish Celtic band, and then members quit that, and then he starts.
Oh wow, Bobby Tinch, Jeff Beck group vocalist. Okay, Jeff Beck, not a singer.
So it's like Edgar Winter, right? Or Edgar Winter sings though, doesn't he?
I'm pretty sure he does.
Oh yeah. So he's a guitar guy, not a singer. Gotcha.
Okay. Wow. Mind is blown so many times already in this episode.
So he then forms Flogging Molly with Bridget Regan, and then they become a weekly regular at an LA bar called Molly Malone's. And
I've played at Molly Malone's.
Well, shit, if you'd played weekly, then you could be the new Flogging Molly.
I could not afford to play weekly at Molly Malone's. That's a bringer venue.
Oh. Well, they were the weekly like Monday night bar band who did like Celtic rock and weekly. And then they named themselves Flogging Molly because they named it after the bar because it's where they got their deal. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's how Flogging Molly kind of comes together. They started in 93 and they don't get like a deal until like 2000. And well, no, they put out the live record, Alive Behind the Green Door. That came out in actually 97. And I think that's on Side One Dummy. So they get in there pretty early just from being a live band. Because like Joe Sib and like Bill Armstrong just saw them that night and they were like, "You want to sign to our label?" And he's like, I'm from Fastway with Fast Eddie. Well, little do you know, I'm a former Epic Records artist. But yeah, so that's how Flogging Molly comes together. Apparently during this time period, something went wrong with Dave's visa, and he basically lived in America illegally for 8 years because he was scared to go back to Ireland because he didn't think he would get to come back to America. So he just stayed here out of fear of like not being allowed to come back. I don't know how they got that worked out. Eventually they got it worked out, but
Yeah.
he was, because he says the story, he's like, yeah, I didn't see my mom for like 8 years, which was pretty rough. I did not like that. That was pretty terrible. So yeah, that's their backstory. Just very weird.
Flogging Molly being an LA band weirdly makes sense because LA has always loved a band doing a thing.
Yeah.
They love gimmicks.
It's a gimmick because everybody else is like an LA musician. Like that's their thing. Like they said Bridget Regan got the job, or, they started the band because like she was at a bar where he was playing and she's like, I play fiddle. You want to, can I play? And then like jam together. And then she was like, and they're like, all right, let's do it. You're in the band. He's also now married to her. So they split their time between Detroit and Ireland. Weird. They went to Detroit. Maybe she's from there.
Gotta get out of LA.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you're touring nonstop because they do. Flogging Molly tours nonstop. They have their own cruise.
Yeah.
They're known for their live show, which I think is more important they make their money playing live. They're not they're not really an album band. I think albums are just a happenstance. Or, I mean, there is some musicianship to it too. Like that's dismissive of them. Cause like, apparently like Dave's father passed away when he was like 10 years old. And he said he like, this swagger specifically was him processing his grief, like of his dad passing, like as an adult years later. So that's why a lot of the songs are about death on this record.
Yeah.
So like, apparently he would always like write, like he's a very good writer as far as like poetry and type stuff like that. And that's when they like put it together with this type of music that it just kind of clicked all together. Years later, revisiting it, what do you think of it?
When I put this on, I mean, first note, it's like I got blasted in the face with a shotgun. I'm just like, whoa, like instant time travel. Like it is shocking to me how long you can go without hearing a song or a band or an album and revisit it and you remember minute details of it. Because like it's not just, I remember how the tune of this song goes. It's like guitar tone and like and voice.
Here's where the tin whistle comes in.
And it's like dynamics and timing and like all of these things are just like insanely familiar. We really listened to these records so many times. Probably the first three Flogging Molly records are probably some of, to this day, like when I die, and I'm in heaven, I'm gonna be like, all right, let's see the final Spotify Wrapped of my life. And it's gonna be like Flogging Molly so far up there because it's like that year.
Yeah,
we listened to those albums so many times. So I was not quite ready for that. I was like, I figured I'd get a little nostalgic kick out of this. I wasn't ready for the ground to open up and me be taken how many years? 10, 20 years back in time. I really said 10 years. I really thought it was 10 years ago.
Almost 20 years ago.
I was not 14 10 years ago. So I was very surprised in revisiting it, but as familiar as it all was, I don't still think it's good the way that I did then 20 years ago.
You thought then? Oh yeah, okay. So I mean, I agree. I don't think it's as good as I thought it was back then.
I don't even think that it isn't as good as I thought it was then. Like, it wasn't like, I was overrating it, but now I'm back down to kind of like no, it's all right. It's pretty good rating. It's a pretty significant drop in quality to come back to it and be like, oh, this is really not good.
So your reappraisal is that it's not a good record. Like,
it's not a good record. There are good
whole
songs on here.
Yeah.
As an album, it's not a very enjoyable listen beginning to end. And it has two significant issues.
Can I guess one of them?
Yeah.
It's way too fucking long.
That's actually not my biggest complaint.
Wow. It's 53 minutes long.
I feel the runtime of the record,
Yeah.
but it's not an overbearing like, well, this is just too long. Like that's not the criticism I'm going to reach for. The two biggest issues to me, it's very samey.
Fair.
And when it deviates from the formula, it also pretty often, not always, about half of the songs that don't fit the Flogging Molly template that like plays in your head when you think of Flogging Molly.
Yeah.
There are the outlier songs on the record. About half of them are some of the worst parts of the record.
Is Sentimental Johnny one of those?
Yeah. Sentimental Johnny is the biggest offender in terms of just being like, well, what the fuck are you doing this for? This isn't even good.
And it's not Celtic.
Don't do something that's different. That's not Celtic, but also not good. Like it doesn't fit your gimmick, and it's actively bad.
You're doing.
It sounds like well, because they're doing like a Mexican polka punk
Yeah, they are.
thing, which is like makes sense for LA.
Yeah.
Like if any of them were Mexican.
Also, the original version of that song, or there maybe like an alternate version of the song, is an entirely in Spanish song. They like either redid it in Spanish or they were originally wrote it in Spanish. I'm not sure which was first. But also, it has the I got the joy down in my heart melody to it. Is the horns.
If the devil doesn't like it, he can sit on attack. Is my note.
But also, it reminded me, too, of the song that Eddie sings in Who Framed Roger Rabbit when he's, like, acting crazy in the bar. And the merry-go-round broke down song that he sings.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the worst song, I think, on the record.
Huge misstep.
What are some other... What do you consider the other steps? I don't really consider, like, the acapella song or even like the ballady stuff as necessarily outside of their style. I just think they're just different versions.
I mean, the Grace of God Go I, that's the acapella one, right?
Yeah. I don't like, I don't know.
I didn't like it.
And I never really liked it. I remember it always
Yeah.
being like, not this one. Like when it came on. I'm never a big fan of that one. What do you think of Black Friday Rule? The like 7-minute epic in the middle of the record. Is like the hard song in the middle of the album too. It was like the darker, faster, harder song with lots of different parts.
It's got like the big ass guitar solo in it, right?
I think so.
There's like a pretty big like rockabilly guitar solo in it. I don't hate it. It's an annoying song overall that has moments that I enjoy.
Yeah.
It's one of those songs that I can't really say it's a good song, but it's also not a bad song in entirety. Like it's kind of a big like show off shred song too, because there's like a fiddle solo in there, and it's just a lot of that, like, which feels like a nod towards, Celtic music in general, where like the musicianship and instrumentalists are really important. Technicality is really important, but it's also an issue that I have with Celtic music in general that I just can't really get too into it. And it's a very similar issue that I have with a lot of bluegrass, where it's like, that's the same idea again and again.
Yeah, to me that's one of the biggest weaknesses of the record. Like there's a lot of songs that just do the same thing over and over again. Now this is the first record, and it's kind of setting the template for what they would do later. And I do think they just become this is the thing we do, I guess Salty Dog, that's the opener, and Devil's Dance Floor are probably like the two that are, this is a Flogging Molly song. This is what a Flogging Molly song sounds like. Those are probably the two biggest examples.
Yeah, and I kind of don't like those songs.
Those are like I like those. I think my favorite song is the Old Beggars Bush.
That's a really good one.
I like that one a lot.
I liked Selfish Man
Yeah.
for being like a template Flogging Molly song. I liked it more than the others that you think of as Flogging Molly songs. It just hooked me better. But I do really like The Old Beggar's Bush. That is definitely one of the best songs on the record. I think it's probably the best song on the record overall.
Yeah. I actually really enjoyed These Exiled Years. That's like the one that kind of breaks the traditional Flogging Molly format, but doesn't get like too far out of bounds like the Sentimental Johnny.
Yeah, I like that one too. That one definitely stood out to me as one of the better songs on the record. And it reminds me, it kind of reminds me of like a Mekon's song. I don't know. It just,
that one felt like he was pulling from other influences with that one.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's the type of song too that like they never really do again. Or I don't know, maybe they do after LP3, but they don't on the first three because it didn't feel like as over the top as those other, as a lot of like Life in a Tenement Square. Worst Day Since Yesterday is kind of ballady and apparently got like played in a lot of movies and TV shows. It's solid. Yeah. But there's like a string in a row where I'm just like, yep, these are the same song like 5 times in a row. Is there anything else that like does not work for you that like breaks the format?
I don't love Worst Day Since Yesterday.
Yeah.
That one feels a little outside. I didn't care for it as much.
It's track 3. It's the slow song.
Yeah.
My least favorite trope in all of music that every fucking band does. Track 3, that's our slow song.
Yeah. It's the cool off. I don't necessarily think should be.
I think 5 is a better cool off. But it's also like a good, like, you get to track 3, and if you weren't feeling 1, 2, and then the slow one comes on at 3, you're like, yeah, I'm not gonna like this record. You could just turn it off. That's why I always go to 3, because that's where bands' instincts to put like, yeah, we're gonna take things down a notch. Like,
we're gonna do something different so they don't think that we only have one idea.
And yeah, if I'm not a fan of idea 1, idea 2, I'm definitely gonna like
1.5.
Yeah. Yeah, usually track 2 is like the same as the first one, just a little bigger. I honestly think statistically, track 2s are the best song on an album. Statistically, like across,
I liked Selfish Man. It was a good track too.
That's my theory. Track 2 is usually the best song on a record. More often than not is the best song on the album. It's not a hard rule, but it is a more statistically relevant. Excluding albums that start with an intro track, those don't count.
Yeah.
That's not a song. You just made it a separate track, which also I understand because you don't necessarily want like the song itself to be like, well, it has a 3-minute intro.
Yeah.
And people just want to hear the main bit. It's like, maybe don't do a 3-minute intro unless you're just like really nailing it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to do a 3-minute intro, it should be a really critical 3-minute intro.
Right.
Like I should have to need to hear it every time.
Like yeah. It needs to be good enough where you're like, well, I have to start here. Like, yeah. You don't want to do like it's just like a little feedbacky thing with some like reverby vocals and it leads right into the first song. It's like that's not a song. You don't need it. We don't need it.
I didn't care for Faraway Boys. You could stop this album at These Exiled Years.
Yeah, I don't mind Faraway Boys because it feels like a closer, and it's doing. I think it's a better.
Exiled Years also feels like a closer.
It does. It does feel like a closer, right? You're right. But then they throw in fucking Sentimental Johnny. That isn't
right?
That like also the slot too that a lot of people put that kind of song to. It's like if it's like a 12-track album, like track 10 is sometimes that like, here's the weirdo song that doesn't fit anything else on the album. It's like you killed the mood from These Exiled Years, and then you tried to get it back with Faraway Boys. Faraway Boys though feels like, I don't think it's a tradition. I don't think there's anything actual traditional on this record, like songs. I think they're all actual Dave King songs. But it's the one that feels the most like this could have been a real traditional song, and I think that's why I like it much more than Grace of God Go I.
I think that the lyrics of Faraway Boys are poignant and worth singing about. I think it's a good subject for a song. I just don't really like the execution of it. And it coming after, I mean, the sequencing of this record just being totally botched that way of having These Exiled Years, a great song, like easily could have been an album closer, followed by the worst song on the album, followed by a downer.
Yeah.
Which does feel final, but it's like by that point we're 55 minutes. That's where I really feel that.
Yeah.
I'm really feeling the runtime when we hit Sentimental Johnny, and I'm like, I got to sit through 5 minutes of this.
What do you think about taking Grace of God Go I out and put Far Away Boys in that
there?
spot? Yeah.
An improvement.
I think it works better because it follows Black Friday Rule, which is like a harder, faster song because that's what we did with the sequencing anyway. He followed up with an acapella, followed up with just an acoustic ballady, folky thing, would fit after the hard Black Friday Rule. And then you get Devil's Dance Floor to close it out for the good times, and then These Exiled Years as your album closer. I think we fixed the runtime issue.
We can
cut
fix
Sentimental Johnny entirely.
Fix the runtime. We can fix the runtime. We can excise the total outlier, not good song.
Yeah.
We can shave off some superfluous kind of outlying material. Might be a good record. Might be an all right record.
I do think
I wouldn't go as far as to say
it
would make it a good record.
Because the bulk of the album is too samey.
Yeah. The rest of it is Salty Dog. Every Dog Has Its Day. Well, the Likes of You Again. Devil's Dance Floor. I'm just like, but that I could live with as like, well, it's not for me.
Yeah. I think what we're doing too is also just making Drunken Lullabies. It's 45 minutes instead of 53 minutes.
So maybe Drunken Lullabies is actually the good one.
And like it's got the opener. Drunken Lullabies was actually a pretty big song. What's Left of the Flag was our intro song to them. I think they have a slow one. If I Ever Leave This World Alive, I think that's their slow one. They have a song called Swagger on Drunken Lullabies.
Yeah.
Why did they do that?
But they didn't write it until after.
When I was looking at them, I was like, all right, out of these three, I would never pick Within a Mile of Home. I would never pick Within a Mile of Home. No, I'm not picking that one. It's got the pirate song on it. We're not doing that one, which is like a classic of their live set, but it's also 52 minutes. I think if I was picking before re-listening to Swagger, I would have probably selected Drunken Lullabies because I think it's the shorter, and Drunken Lullabies, the song, is more well known than anything on Swagger. So I was surprised when you went Swagger. I was like, oh, the first one, huh? But you're right, though. I do remember thinking it was the best at the time. So I don't know. It's tough to say. Out of curiosity, I'm going to see what the mutants on Rate Your Music have, where they rank these. So this is the highest rated out of the three.
It has a 3.56.
Yeah.
The second album has a 3.5, and the third album has a 3.48. Fourth album has a 3.84.
That's a live record. This fucking website breaking the fucking rules again. Let me guess. Half of these are unreleased songs. No, they're not. This goes under the live category. These are not half this. This is all. I hate this website.
You'll never get it corrected.
These assholes. Why are you putting that there? All of these songs are previously released, so it goes in the live album. It's a live record. It goes in the live album category. Anyway, apparently nobody else gives a shit about anything. Float's got an okay, like a 3.31, but like people do not like Life is Good. That's a 2.92. I bet Albini gives them a bump on Anthem, a 20% bump, 20 points up. Their highest rated album is their Live at the Greek Theater. It's a 4.08. Weirdos. Will, any final thoughts?
I guess I want to go on record and say that I really did try to enjoy this record in good faith. Like, there are times where we talk about a record and we kind of like shit on it. And like, there are times where we do that. And usually it's like a Halloween episode where it's like, all right, we went into this with a gimmick that we don't really respect. And I have issues with Celtic punk as a genre, but I think Celtic music as a genre, and I think that Irish identity are valid things that I've changed my opinion about them, or like at least have just grown more empathetic to them. So I really went into this record thinking like, okay, I have a history with it. There's a chance that there's something that I can still get out of this record. And there's a few songs there's a few songs on here I wouldn't mind hearing again. So yeah, I guess it feels like I can just feel the hate comments
I was gonna say, are you worried that we're gonna get way more listeners for this episode than a regular episode? So you're like, let me say this stuff first.
It's not, well, okay, it's not for the sake of saving face, because I think we've said enough bad about bands in the past that we are fairly certain that a member of the band has listened. There have been confirmed cases where we said positive things about the band, that the band listened and yelled at us for having incorrect information. So I just think it's worth saying, like, I really did try. Like, I didn't pick this record thinking, oh, this will be easy to laugh at. Got a lot of material ready for this one. No, it was genuinely like, there could be something there, and it was not there. Not overall.
So we think another 15 years and we'll listen to another Flogging Molly record again?
I would say if we do Flogging Molly again in the future, I'd like to have a guest on.
Yeah.
But I'm also probably going to be more inclined to knock it if I don't like it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think we were more negative on the Dropkick Murphys episode when we did that one too. So, because I remember stuff on that record making me mad. Like, yeah, lyrically, it was just like, what the fuck is? I remember that. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of really good lyrics on Swagger on this record. Like, I think Dave is a good writer.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely works within a style, but a genre, and like deals with a certain kinds of characters that at times can feel a bit hacky, but not hacky, too pastiche, maybe is the word. But I also say that as someone who listens to a fuck ton of classic country. So don't seriously, like, I don't tend to get too, I mean, you know this, I don't tend to get too in the weeds on lyrics.
Yeah.
I think they're fine for whatever they are, for whatever you want them to be, whatever you intend them to be most of the time. And I think he's good at writing the kinds of characters that he does, writing about the kinds of subjects that he does. Like I said, there's very poignant stuff even on songs that I didn't really like the song. Like, that's good. That's a good lyric. That's a good thing to sing about. I'm glad that exists for him and for other people who enjoy it.
All right. Well, I think that will do it for us. Thank you all so much for listening. You can follow us on all forms of social media. We have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, YouTube, everything. We're on it all at PunkLottoPod, and voicemail line 202-688-PUNK and PunkLottoPod@gmail.com. So appreciate you all so much for listening, and happy St. Paddy's Day.